As you teach your kids this Sunday, through all the craziness and all the busyness and planning, I want you to pay attention to three things. One, what are the questions that your students are asking? What are the questions that your students have about God's word, about maybe baptism or heaven and hell or salvation? What are those things that your students are asking? Don't just ignore those or think those are just, cool little questions they're asking. No, those are signs of spiritual growth. Keep those things in mind as you teach. The second thing I want you to look for is what are the influences? What are the influences of your students? Who do they talk about? Who are their heroes? What music do they talk about and they listen to? What shows, what YouTube channels do they talk about? What kind of shirts do they wear? What cartoons are they into? These are important things to know and to understand the influences of our kids. And that when we teach, we're not teaching to entertain or just to do something because it's cool, but we also want to teach in a way that they understand. They understand the language. They understand the themes. And so when we pay attention to the influences and what makes our kids tick, that's going to help us be even more influential and be even more effective. And number three, I want you to pay attention to your spiritual growth of your students. This goes back to the first thing to pay attention to, the questions, right? The reason why we pay attention to the questions that they're asking, because that's a sign of spiritual growth. So really be sensitive in prayer, be sensitive to God's Spirit, and ask that God would speak through you to what your kids are needing in their spiritual growth. What are the bright spots in your children's ministry? It can be really easy for us to look at what's wrong in our kids' ministry, but I encourage you, I challenge you this week to sit down and look at what's right with your ministry. What are some things that are going right? What are some events or strategies or things that you have in place that you can duplicate? You can look at those bright spots, if you will, and you can say, how can we duplicate that bright spot? Maybe it's a volunteer that's going above and beyond, that's going the extra mile and being really effective in their ministry. Well, what you could do is you could have other volunteers shadow them or have that volunteer share some of their strategies and what they're doing and share their passion. You are duplicating that bright spot. So look at your ministry this week and look for the bright spots that you can duplicate. What are some things that are happening in your church that you can reflect in your kids' ministry? Look around and maybe there are things that are already happening in your overall ministry of your church that aren't happening in your kids' ministry. For example, if there are greeters that are greeting families and adults as they come in to your church building, maybe you could reflect that in your kids' ministry and have greeters specifically for your kids. If you already have a follow-up system for adults and people that come to your church, that maybe they come in and they receive a bag or they receive a card or they receive something in the mail once they leave, reflect that in your kids' ministry. Send them cards or have a bag waiting for them, something waiting for them as they come in. Reflect what's already happening in your church in your kids' ministry. So when you're teaching a lesson and you notice that there are a couple students and maybe they're talking to each other, maybe they're being distracted by each other, one thing I would like to do in my lesson is redirect their attention. So instead of maybe stopping what I'm doing and trying to reprimand them, I redirect their attention. So if I'm talking and I see Jimmy and Johnny over here and they're talking and they're being distracting to others, I will take my lesson as I'm teaching and I will direct my attention to them. Hey, isn't that right, Jimmy and Johnny? Isn't that right? Isn't that what Jesus said? Or isn't that, what do you guys think, right? I redirect the attention to them without making it awkward or stopping what I'm doing. And most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, their attention is redirected. They get the message. They understand that, oh, hey, we were distracting each other, so let's put our attention back forward. As you prepare for your lesson this Sunday to kids, ask yourself, what is your sticky statement? What is that short phrase, 1 or 2 words that you can use to really capture the big idea of your lesson, to really capture the message that you're trying to get across? Once you know what your sticky statement is, repeat it time and time again throughout your lesson. Make sure your kids know it and make sure that when they walk away, they won't forget what your sticky statement is.